Yesterday, the New York Post published a groundbreaking expose on the Biden family, mostly on Hunter Biden, coming from emails they received from a laptop. The emails seemed to show that Joe Biden himself was lying when he said he wasn't talking to his son about foreign business dealings, and that Hunter Biden was being enriched off the family name and influence he gained by being the son of the vice president. Joe Biden, according to this new evidence and other evidence, may have actually been trying to interfere in foreign countries to benefit his family and become wealthy. Now, I'm very careful on the language I use. I believe personally, the evidence shows us enough that Joe Biden, at the very least, was helping his family get rich. We have a story from Politico magazine called Biden Inc., where they talk about this very detail, and that was last year. I believe the Bidens are crooked. I believe Hunter Biden is very crooked, and I think Joe knows all about it. But I tell you now, we're in an episode of Black Mirror, baby. You see, this story got censored on social media. I'm now hearing this new thing in journalism. People are saying, well, did we verify the story yet? Is the story verified? The story is unverified. What do you mean unverified? The emails were published. I can read them. Unverified. Nobody verified the New York Times story on Trump's tax returns, and they didn't publish any evidence. The New York Post put the emails out there, or some of them, and photos. And a bunch of other outlets have the photos as well. Some pretty damning photos. Let me show you this right here before we get started. This is the most important thing you're ever going to see for now, because who knows what's going to happen later. House Judiciary GOP tweeted, Twitter has blocked users from tweeting the link to the New York Post story on Hunter Biden. So we put it on our website for you to read and share. Click share and retweet. Yes, this is the house.gov website. Let me repeat that for you. House.gov. The United States government website. Let me click this link for you. And this is what happens. Twitter is now actively censoring and blocking the U.S. government's, the U.S. government website. Amazing. And take a look at what it says. The link you are trying to access has been identified by Twitter or our partners as being potentially spammy or unsafe. In accordance with Twitter's URL policy, this link could fall into any of the below categories: malicious links that could steal your information or harm your devices, spammy links that mislead people or disrupt their experience, violent or misleading content that could lead to real-world harm. Certain categories of content, if posted directly on Twitter, are a violation of the Twitter rules. What about a house.gov website is any of those things? Misleading. Who in the ever-living are you to say the U.S. government is misleading? Now, hey, I'm right there with you, Twitter. Let's talk about all the ways the government misleads us. Hey, is that what your official stance is? Because I'm down. Hey, I'll tell you what. How about we get Jack Dorsey to talk about all of his fears over the government lying to him, and he can hang out with Alex Jones and Rachel Maddow, and they can screech about all of their conspiracy theories. This is a whole new level of of depravity. But to be fair, you can ignore this warning and continue, which I will do. Welcome now to the Judiciary Committee, House of Representatives, Ranking Member Jim Jordan, House.gov, smoking gun email reveals how Hunter Biden introduced Ukrainian businessman to VP dad. Okay, I'm scrolling through this, and guess what? Are there any photos? No. Any images or personal information? No, not at all. It's literally just the text from the story posted to the GOV website. So why is Twitter taking this down? Twitter issued a long statement saying commentary on this stuff is fine so long as you don't show it. What do you mean? This doesn't show it. Why is this being blocked? Because, dude, let me say it for the 50 billionth time. Social media companies are manipulating you, and they're doing it to help Joe Biden win. If you haven't already, I know it's a bit outdated at this point. It's almost coming on 2 years old, a year and a half old. Check out the Joe Rogan podcast I did with Jack Dorsey and Vijaya Gadde of Twitter. Their goal is for a global community. And that's all well and good, except you have to abide by rules, laws, and norms of the country you're in for the country you're in. And that's Twitter's policy. You know how many times I get emails where they're like, your Twitter account has been reported, but we found no violation of German law. Why do I care about German law? Oh, because in these countries, they have to abide by their rules and their norms. I've also, and not me personally, Actually, no, I think I did get one of these. I'm not sure. But a lot of people will get notifications saying that they're blasphemers because they've said things about Islam. And then I see them post and say, like, why is Twitter telling me, that in this country, in Pakistan or whatever? It's because you broke the law in Pakistan. Don't go there. If you get a notification from Twitter saying you broke the law in this country, don't go to that country. So why is Twitter upholding the rules, norms, and laws of foreign countries for American citizens, but not the other way around? They want Joe Biden to win. They are cheating to help Joe Biden win. They are cheating to help Democrats win. They've been cheating for years. They are manipulating the public. And this is why I've been screeching like a banshee that they need to be regulated. Look, free speech, yes. But when they take over and monopolize the commons, that's when the regulation steps in. I don't think antitrust is necessarily going to solve the problem because having a bunch of little Twitters won't change the fact. But a federated Twitter universe, or the Fediverse that actually exists, is a much better way to do things. The problem is they've monopolized the space. And that's just because humans choose to do it. And that's a serious challenge. But guess what? I've always been leaning left on many of these issues. I've always been in favor of regulating these companies. When it comes to a point where the dominant communication platforms are censoring the government, now that is something special. Well, of course, Donald Trump is none too happy with this. And we'll get to that in a second. But I want to show you some, we have Sohrab Ahmari. He says, this is a big tech information coup. This is digital civil war. I, an editor at the New York Post, one of the nation's largest papers in circulation, can't post one of our own stories that details corruption by a major party presidential candidate. Bravo. I want to show you the glorious response Twitter had to this. What I really wanted to do was play circus music, but I can't, just, copyright and stuff. This is what Twitter is posting on everyone's page. Well, maybe not everybody's, but when I go on Twitter, there's a what's happening section. And it says, Joe Biden did not push out a Ukrainian prosecutor for investigating his son. The Washington Post confirms. Oh, the Washington Post confirmed it. Therefore, it must be true. There's no ulterior motive here. The great journalists of the Washington Post are just trying to make sure that we know the truth and that they endorse Joe Biden for president September 28th, 2020. 2020 is great, man. Cue the circus music. That's what I'm talking about, baby. The Washington Post endorses Joe Biden for president and confirms that Joe Biden is okay. Because we here in the pro-Democrat camp investigated ourselves and found we did nothing wrong. This is what you're going to get. I had some friends say like, but is the story verified? And I was like, did you verify any story you've ever read? When the New York Times or the Washington Post, did the Washington Post verify the story? Did they verify their confirmation? They didn't. So until we get more outlets verifying it, you see, over at Politico, they actually asked the Biden camp and Biden refused to deny it. So what does that mean? They said, we looked over Biden's schedule and we couldn't recall anything. And then later it says, but it could have happened because, Joe Biden does things like this. And it's fantastic, ain't it? So we have this from Emma Jo Morris, who is the deputy politics editor for the New York Post. The New York Post Twitter account is still locked. That's truly amazing. Bias. And look at this. Look at this. I pull up Emma Jo Morris. And what do you see right here on what's happening? Joe Biden did not push out a Ukrainian prosecutor for investigating his son. The Washington Post confirms. Let me tell you something. I'm going to go ahead and say the opposite. There was an affidavit released by Victor Shokin, the prosecutor, who said he was going to investigate Burisma. There were some instances in Ukraine where Joe Biden was named in a criminal complaint for interfering. Joe Biden himself bragged about flying to Ukraine and withholding $1 billion in aid to get a prosecutor fired. I don't care what the EU thinks. I don't care what Britain thinks. I want to know why a vice presidential candidate was going to Ukraine and telling them, fire a prosecutor, otherwise you're not getting U.S. money. I don't care about, you can take whatever else you want from that. Let me tell you, I don't like the idea of the United States buying politicians in foreign countries, but I get it. Statecraft, whatever you want to call it. We are trying to win these conflicts, win and peddle influence, and that's what America does. I still take issue with it. I don't think we should be going to foreign countries and gloating about how wealthy we are. And we can give you $1 billion if you fire this one guy we don't like. They say, but it wasn't Joe Biden who wanted to do it. It was the European Union and Great Britain. Why are we acting at the behest of the European Union and Great Britain? It's not an answer. No excuse. So here's what ends up happening. Joe Biden claims this prosecutor, and in fact, this is actually what this. Let me see if I can click this, and I'm going to read this for you. Let's debunk some bunk BS. They say Joe Biden did not blah 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 confirm. Let me read this. A series of emails obtained by the New York Post were published on Wednesday in a story alleging that Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden, introduced his father to a top executive. I mean, you can argue they alleged it, but they published an email where the guy said, "Thanks for the opportunity to visit and meet your father," blah, blah, blah. They say, however, according to the Washington Post, then Vice President Biden played no role in pressuring Ukraine officials into firing the prosecutor, who was also not investigating the energy firm. That is a whole new level of psychotic lies. Man, Joe Biden's on video saying, I went there and said, if you don't fire the prosecutor, you ain't getting the money. Well, son of a B, guy got fired. They have the nerve right here to say he played no role in pressuring Ukraine officials to firing the prosecutor. Wow. That's amazing, ain't it? Welcome to Black Mirror, my friends. Biden did not push out a Ukrainian prosecutor investigating his son, the Post confirms. The New York Post story had several red flags and holes that raised questions about his authenticity, according to journalists. Well, according to journalists at the New York Post, it didn't. So shut your mouth. They are cheating. They are stealing the election. They are doing it in front of your face, and they are colluding with big tech monopolies to shut down news stories to do it. But I want to give some credit to Jack Dorsey and the morons over at Twitter for inflaming the Streisand effect. A story that probably would have gone through its traditional speedy news cycle, and then Trump would have said something dumb, and then we'd all been like, what was that thing about Hunter Biden again? Instead, they pull this because I want to say it sounds like they're trying to lose, but look like they're trying to win. We actually want to suppress the information, so we'll do everything in our power to actually make the story bigger. Look at all this. Here we go. Quote, Shokin was not investigating. He didn't want to investigate Burisma. Daria Kaleniuk of the Ukrainian Anti-Corruption Action Center told the Washington Post in July. Except according to an affidavit from Shokin, he did. So shut your mouth. And Shokin was fired not because he wanted to do that investigation, but quite the contrary, because he failed that investigation. Oh, that was the biggest mistake y'all made. You see, when Joe Biden went to this guy and he said, if you don't fire him, you don't get the money. Well, son of a B, guy got fired. And then the new prosecutor cleared Mykola Zlochevsky of all wrongdoing. And that was the guy who founded Burisma. Cleared of all wrongdoing. And he came back to Ukraine with a clean slate. And then in 2018, under the Trump administration, I'm not saying it had anything to do with Trump, but, once Biden's out, charges reemerge against the guy and he fled to Monaco. So let me ask you something. They're saying they fired this guy because he failed the investigation. The next guy that came in, thanks to Joe Biden, cleared the dude of wrongdoing. So what's that all about? Was Joe Biden going after an innocent man and getting Victor Shokin fired because he wouldn't prosecute an innocent man? Or was Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, on the board of an energy company where he was receiving $83,000 per month for no reason, for an unknown reason? He didn't speak Ukrainian, didn't work in the energy sector, but his name was Biden. And then Victor Shokin says there was an inactive investigation. Shokin says he did want to investigate Zlochevsky. It's unfortunate for him that Joe Biden stepped in, I guess. So the question is, who do you trust? Do you trust the crooked influence peddling Bidens? Or do you trust the, crooked oligarchic Ukrainians? I'm not a fan of either. To put it more neutrally, you could say something like, do you trust a prosecutor in Ukraine, or do you trust the vice president of the United States? And I think a lot of people in that circumstance would say, I'm not going to trust Ukraine. And so that's fair. It absolutely is fair. Maybe Victor Shokin really wasn't doing the investigation. Maybe he's just trying to use this now to go after Joe. And maybe a lot of this is kind of like political revenge for the actions the U.S. took in Ukraine. And we were taking many. It has a lot to do with Syria, natural gas, Gazprom in Russia, and the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. This all conflict has a lot to do with getting natural gas into Europe. I'll tell you what, man. The Bidens are crooked. That's fine. And I'm not saying that Trump's ain't crooked. I'm just saying, hey, man, the Bidens are crooked. But I'll tell you this. The New York Times put out a story. They put out a story about Trump's taxes, and they lied. They say in the opening line, Trump only paid $750. Then later in the story, they actually paid $5.2 million, but that's a whole other issue. His tax liability was only $750, but he let the IRS keep the money for future liabilities. So Trump paid a lot more than he actually owed. But that's not what the New York Times said. More importantly, the New York Times never published any evidence, like no images, no proof. We don't even know where this information came from. Not a single person in these circles said, well, the information's unverified. For years, Russia collusion conspiracy trash. When has Twitter ever intervened to this level? They've not. And look at the brazen lie. Vice President Biden played no role in pressuring Ukraine officials into firing the prosecutor. That's crazy to me, man. There's video of this. There's video of Joe Biden saying he did. And Twitter is putting out this lie. It's scary, man. It's Black Mirror. Here's Twitter. Here's a story from Daily Mail. Twitter boss Jack Dorsey apologizes. Yeah, but he just said we should have had more communication. That was it. So Jack Dorsey tweeted, our communication around our actions on the New York Post article was not great, and blocking URL sharing via tweet or DM with zero context as to why we're blocking unacceptable. You know what they're saying? Twitter is saying that you can't share information. You can't share content from that was obtained without authorization, which is the weirdest, most absurd thing they could ever have said. What does that mean? So I can't post memes? Like nobody authorized me to post any fair use content. Nobody authorized me to show any of these tweets. Can I not post someone else's tweet because it's content without the owner's authorization? Check this out. Lee Zeldin. This is a representative. This is New York's first congressional district. Lee Zeldin says, indisputably false claim Twitter placed at the top of their app on my phone. Then Vice President played no role in pressuring UK into firing the prosecutor. Here it is. Let me play this.
We're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion.
Let me make sure I'm playing it and you can hear it, because I don't know if hopefully this works. It might not work.
I said, no. I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
They put in place someone who was solid at the time, but who cleared the founder of Burisma of all wrongdoing. You know what? Fine. I'm not going to go. We don't even go into more detail on what happened with Ukraine. You heard that. You heard it with your own ears. You see the video. I just played it. Twitter put out overt false information that Biden played no role in this. It's Black Mirror, man. It is absolutely a level of depravity and insanity. Now, I'll tell you what's funny. Jonathan Swan. He's the guy from Axios who did that really cringy interview with Trump where his brow was furrowed the whole time and he was like, like every single thing Trump said, he would go, oh, no. And it was really just cringe inducing. However, that being said, he tweeted, content obtained without authorization is a hilarious standard that seemingly nobody at Twitter has spent any time thinking through. Yeah. Twitter Safety said the policy established in 2018 prohibits the use of our services to distribute content obtained without authorization. We don't want to incentivize hacking by allowing Twitter to be used as distribution for possibly illegally obtained materials. Hacking? That's not the story. The New York Post came across the information because it was leaked to them. What they're saying right now, what Jack Dorsey is saying, I'm going to say straight up, they've banned journalism. I'm not kidding. They have straight up banned journalism. If I came out and said, I have proof of X, Y, and Z, and someone said, show me the proof, I'd say, I can't. Twitter says I'm not allowed. Journalism, leaked information, whistleblowers, no good. So why was the New York Times allowed to publish that story? Donald Trump tweeted, So terrible that Facebook and Twitter took down the story of smoking gun emails related to sleepy Joe Biden and his son, Hunter, in the New York Post. It is only a beginning for them. There is nothing worse than a corrupt politician. Repeal Section 230. Section 230, for those that aren't familiar, is the Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which says that you can't hold a digital, I forgot the internet platform or whatever, internet content provider. You can't hold them liable for the comments made by third parties through their service. What the intent was, if I post a comment on your website, or if you post a comment on my website, I can't be sued because of what you said. They would sue you. It also included provisions that allowed for content moderation in good faith, obscenities, lewd videos and things like that, and things that were considered objectionable. Under that protective guideline, that good faith provision, you have Twitter banning people and news outlets. This right here is not objectionable. That there's no way in my and I think in any reasonable view that someone would interpret censoring the New York Post as good faith moderation, in which case I think Twitter has already forfeited their Section 230 protections because they are well outside the boundaries of what they were protected on. You know what I think needs to happen, though? People need to start suing Twitter, the company, for what the individuals on Twitter are saying. So if someone insults you, you file suit. I've often thought about this. You've got how many users on Twitter? 300 million. I don't know how many are in America, but imagine this. Imagine 200,000 American conservative individuals who were smeared by someone on Twitter, and they all filed lawsuits against Twitter. Eventually, something's going to break through and shadow and crack the facade. Eventually, someone's going to get an argument through that Twitter has no Section 230 protections because they're censoring news organizations. That is not good faith moderation. Thus, they should not be protected. The New York Times is responsible for what the New York Times publishes, not their authors. Although maybe there's an argument that's true too. That's how crazy Section 230 is. Repealing it's a bad idea. Trump is wrong. If you repeal Section 230, it just means conservative and independent media will get purged instantly. Finger snap, gone, like Thanos. However, reforming Section 230 is a good idea. So look, there's a lot to go through here, but I do have to keep these segments limited to a certain time frame. And I'll just tell you this, man. The most important thing, we just watched an international multi-billion-dollar corporation censor the U.S. government, the government from sharing information. They've done it to Trump, and that's shocking. And there's an argument to be made in certain circumstances about what Trump says. If he says something that's an opinion that's kind of, I don't know, if he says something, an opinion on medical advice and people are like, well, we can't share that, fine. This is a breaking news story, not an opinion, about major corruption from a U.S. politician published by government actors on a government website being censored. Welcome to Black Mirror, my friends. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Maybe we'll have some developments on this, and I'll see you all then.